Space Shuttle, this is flight safety. Keep your hands on the handrail or inside the vehicle and remain seated while in motion. You are clear for launch. Have a great flight to Starport 75.
Hey, Glenn.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
I'm doing great, man.
Good.
Ready to talk more about the Disney universe with you.
Sounds good.
Yeah. What do we chat about today?
Well, so this is, we're recording this on January 16th. So yesterday was the 44th anniversary of the opening of Space Mountain and Walt Disney World.
Shut up.
I
Really?
know, right? And
44. Wow.
I know. And, you know, our podcast is kind of named after a part of Space Mountain, right?
Wait, it is? I never realized.
It is.
So you licensed that from Disney?
I'm ignoring that. And we've never really talked about the origins of Space Mountain or anything about it. And
Yeah,
so
truly.
I said, hey, why don't we, on our next topic episode, why don't we cover Space Mountain?
Well, listen, if there was ever an attraction that, at least in my mind, is like typifies Glenn Welch's love for Disney, it would be this one. So I'm going to have a beverage and I'm going to sit back and I'm going to learn. So
right.
Where do we go? What do we talk about Space Mountain?
All right, so I'm going to start off with a little history and go through some facts. I don't want to make this just reading off a bunch of facts. So
Should people take notes for the quiz later?
Story. No quiz.
Okay.
But then we'll talk about Space Mountain, and
Cool.
we'll just free form it. So
Okay.
a little bit of history. The idea for Space Mountain actually started with Walt. Way back in 1964, he started. So the Matterhorn was built in Disneyland. It opened in 1959. And
These are the bobsleds, right? The
bobsled,
kind of
yes,
roller coaster
Matterhorn
going through there.
bobsleds, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it was the first steel roller coaster ever built.
No. Is
Yeah,
that right?
yeah,
I didn't
that
know
is
that.
right.
Okay.
Yes. And so Walt didn't. When Disneyland opened, he did not want it to become, let's say, an amusement park with just roller coasters, generic roller coasters, and he hated that. Right? He wanted things to be themed, and he wanted to control the guest experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so he built the Matterhorn, and he saw the success of it, and he saw how he could tell a story within that roller coaster, and so he wanted something for the redo of Tomorrowland in Disneyland that was going to open in 1967. So he asked John Hench, who was a famous Disney artist and designer, and John Hench drew just like Herb Ryman did way back when for Disneyland.
Right.
On one weekend he drew out Disneyland. Well, John Hench basically, as he was talking to Walt, he drew on the back of an envelope basically what he thought this spaceport should look like, and it, amazingly enough, it looks very close to what it looks like now. It had the cone shape. It had the dramatic lines on it. So that's kind of amazing. But
And how many years before that it was actually built? Was that? Did you say? Roughly?
1964.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So it's quite a while. And
Yeah.
so, but 1964, if you remember, was when Disney was very involved with the 64-65 World's Fair in New York.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so they kind of put it on the shelf. He was like, okay, we got to, let's deal with the World's Fair. Let's get over that. And he was buying land in Florida for this other thing that he was going to be building.
How'd that work out?
Yeah, well, pretty good actually.
Good.
So while Walt was alive, it just kind of it was put on a shelf and forgotten about. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So So
And I'm sorry, was the idea, if you don't mind a quick question,
Yeah.
was the idea from the start that it was an indoor coaster like that in
yeah.
the dark, that kind of idea?
very good. That's the next thing I was going to say.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to preempt you. All right, go
No,
ahead.
no. So yeah, it was. So Walt was the one. He wanted to be a roller coaster in the dark because he wanted to have precise control of the lighting and to project images on the interior walls. That was So that was his idea from the start. Was once again being able to control the guest experience.
Right.
Yeah. So it got shelved. Nothing happened. It did not open, obviously, and with the 1967 redo of Tomorrowland in Disneyland. And so what happened was RCA. So Disney World was being built, and during the building phase, they entered into agreement with RCA. RCA provided all of the infrastructure for the communications for Disney World. Okay. In that contract, it said that if Disney could come up with an attraction for RCA, they would be willing to spend $10 million sponsoring it.
Which back then was
It was a lot of money, right?
Enormous. I mean, $10 million today is nothing.
Yeah. So Card Walker, the CEO, said he went to Marty Sklar and John Hench and said, "Hey, look, we need to design something so we can get this $10 million."
Yeah, anything.
right. So they put together a plan to have a ride through a computer. Okay, that was their.
Where's that ride? I want to go on that one.
That was it, and they were going to turn Mission to Mars into that ride.
Okay.
So they went. So there's this classic story that Marty Sklar told was so Marty Sklar and John Hench went to RCA and met with the CEO Robert Sarnoff,
Oh,
and what happened was the way he tells it is the RCA guys before the meeting they were setting up and they said, okay, look, you set up right over here, but Robert's going to sit at the head of the table. And so, but that's how he does things. And so they said, okay, sure. And so he came in, he sat down, they started presenting. Well, apparently this table was like a mile long. He couldn't hear anything. He couldn't see the material. And he was like, and so he wrote a note that he passed to the guy, next to him and said, "Who are these guys?" And
Are you kidding me?
That guy, passed it to the guy next to him, the executive next to him, and it got all the way down to Marty Sklar, and he took they gave it to him. He read it. He saw, oh, we're not getting he doesn't even know who we are. He doesn't know why we're here. He's clearly not getting the idea of what we're trying to do. And so
that seems so impossible. Really?
I know. Well, look, that's
how big was this table?
I know.
But all right.
So they left, and they nothing. They obviously didn't get the $10 million. So they said, look. So Marty said, look, we tried to do something for RCA that they would like. What we're going to change, and we're going to design something that we want to design that would be good for Disney. And then we'll present that to them and see if they want to do it. Right. And so that's when they said, hey, you know what? Let's dust off those plans for the spaceport and see what we can do with that. Okay. So
do you know what the impetus was to go we probably wouldn't know, but wonder why they thought of that. I'm sure they had lots of stuff in the archives, but
yeah,
who knows?
Well, actually, so what they did, they focused on the communication part of it. All right. The idea behind in the pitch and what it ended up being was the attraction would consist of the roller coaster rocket ride through space, right? But guests would see RCA satellites orbiting in space, and after the ride, guests would visit the Home of the Future Living, which showed off the latest RCA home entertainment products.
Okay.
So it was more about communications in the future, right?
Right. Okay.
And so they went back, but this time they brought Card Walker, who knew Robert Sarnoff.
This time they had name tags.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the other thing they did was they set up their presentation. They said, he's not going to sit at the head of the table. He's going to sit right here in the middle. And they're like, they freaked out. The RCA people freaked out. They're like, no, oh my God, he can't. He has to sit here.
Mm-hmm.
And so they said, no, he's going to sit here. And so he was like, oh, nobody's ever asked me to sit here. I don't mind sitting
They usually
here.
don't
That's
let
fine.
me down that side of the table.
So anyway, so it went much better. They agreed to it. And so that's how RCA
Got it. So they got their $10 million bucks.
They got their $10 million.
Nice.
So the project started. So it was led by John Hench and Marty Sklar. By the way, Marty Sklar he eventually became the head of Imagineering.
Yep. Legend.
A legend, yes, absolutely. And
You met him, didn't you? Didn't you meet him once?
I did, yeah. Yes and no. Yes.
Yeah, I think see previous episode.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway.
So they created their team that included Claude Coates. Claude Coates, he helped design Pirates of the Caribbean and Haunted Mansion.
Mm-hmm.
They even brought on former astronaut Gordon Cooper. He was a member of the Disney team.
Okay.
He was the commander of Mercury 9 and Gemini 5.
Oh yeah. Legendary.
And he provided personal consultation to help ensure the authenticity of Space Mountain.
Yeah, but he was probably brought on for like name, right? So
That's
that we
exactly
have an
right.
actual
He
Apollo
even-
astronaut.
Yeah, absolutely. And he even did the warning spiel, like the
Is that right?
video. Before that, he was in the first one.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Oh, I'd love to. I got to go find audio of that.
I
didn't
know,
realize that.
right?
Okay.
Okay. So they started designing it. The roller coaster. Here's the boring facts, real quick. It was developed by Arrow and Disney. Arrow is the company that built the Matterhorn, so they stuck with the same company.
I'm sorry. Arrow is a construction company. Is that
They're
what you're
a roller coaster
okay.
company.
saying? All right.
So it's
They
made.
still well, that's right. I'll stop with my questions.
Yeah. No. Go
Good.
ahead.
No, I was curious if they're still like. Are they like? I don't know much about
Yes, they're still around.
roller coaster construction. Are they like still like a big name in the?
They're not the
is.
biggest name anymore, but yeah, they're still around.
Okay.
Yeah. So, in all of this, the Space Mountain we're talking about, I guess I should have said this in the beginning. I'm focusing on the Walt Disney World Space Mountain because it was the first and it's the one that.
Well, they're identical, right?
No, they're not. But so
Okay.
so anyway, no, they're all different because the one in Paris has loops in it, and Disneyland only has one track, and so anyway, so they're all different in certain ways. But anyway, the Walt Disney World Space Mountain has two tracks, Alpha and Omega.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know which one's longer?
I got a 50-50 shot here, right? I
One
believe
of them is
Omega,
10 feet longer
yeah,
than
yeah,
the other.
yeah. I believe Omega is the longer one.
You're wrong.
Really?
It's Alpha, yeah.
All right, then edit this out and have me say Alpha is the longer one.
All right, do you know the top speed?
Nope. 45 miles an hour?
Nope. Between
A
28 and
million
35
miles an hour?
miles per hour.
All right, that's close.
The reason there's a difference there is because for years and years and years, in the Birnbaum official guide,
Yeah.
it was always 28 miles per hour, 28 miles per hour. But in 2009, they did a rehab and they replaced sections of the track. And so I think it's actually, from what I'm seeing now, it actually gets up to 35 miles per hour. I don't know if it's just faster because of whatever. I don't know. But so that's why it's ranged between 28 and 35 miles per hour.
Okay. That's top speed, you said?
Top speed, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The duration of the ride is
Like 2 minutes and 12 seconds or something like
so
that.
close.
Really?
2 minutes 30 seconds.
Oh, gosh. So close. All right.
Pretty good.
Yeah. It's coming back to me.
So the roller coaster, it's a pure gravity ride. So there's no boosters or retarders that slow down the cars.
Yeah,
There's only
say
braking zones.
Mhm.
Okay. So if the ride stops for any reason,
It's got to run through.
well, all they have to do is release the brakes, and the trains will coast back to the station. They'll coast to the next braking zone, and they can stop it.
Oh, I see.
So there's no need.
So a braking zone is they can put on the brake, and when the car hits that zone, it hits a brake. Is that how
Yeah,
it goes?
it stops, and they're all in a section where they're angled that they can just release the brakes and they'll continue on. to the next braking zone.
Right.
So there's nothing that's making the cars artificially move. It's just
good old fashioned gravity.
Yeah.
Have you ever been on when they've had to do that?
You know, no, and it ticks me off because
I want this
that's
ride
the
to
one
break,
thing
darn
I
it.
would love to have happen. I would love to be evacuated from Space Mountain.
Okay.
I really would.
Hashtag life goals. All right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
All right.
All right. And then there are. Do you want to guess how many trains there are?
Well, but so far my luck has not gone well. So, how many trains?
Yeah.
8.
No. So
18.
there's 15 on each side. So there's 30
18.
trains.
Okay. That's what I meant per side. That's what I was going to
Yeah. So but I was going to give it to you if you got it. You know, I was going to say, all right, well, yeah, for one side.
All right.
So and then there's 2 cars per train with 3 people per car. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
But when it opened, there were 4 people per car. So it was
People have gotten bigger.
Well, it was the coolest thing because it was the greatest thing to take a date on, or because they would sit in between your lap your lap.
He's such a perv.
I know, I am, but hey,
Is that how you and your wife met?
it was the greatest. Yeah. So anyway, it wasn't as strict. It was basically I don't even know if they had a belt or what, but you just sat there and they had bars on the side of the car and you'd hold on to the side.
Hold on. Just make sure you don't fall out.
Yeah, I don't think there was any kind of seatbelt or anything. I think it was just like, okay, hold on.
Yeah.
So anyway, that changed in 1989 to what it is now, where you have a lap bar and the 3 people instead of 4.
89. So that means that's funny you say. Okay. Yeah, because the first time I rode it, well, we'll talk about that later. But
yeah, okay.
Interesting you put that timing. Okay.
So the next thing I wanted to, well, I tell you what, why don't we stop there? Why don't we talk about the ride and our experience on it? And then the last thing I want to cover, just to give a little preview, is the whole home of future living. I do want to cover that. And since we had just recently talked about the changes
you're not going to complain again, are you?
At the exit. What's that?
You're not going to complain again, are you?
No, not at all.
No, of course not.
All right. So this was the first roller coaster I had ever been on.
Mm-hmm.
I was a scaredy cat when I was younger, and
right.
My dad convinced me to go on it somehow, and I went on it, and ever since then, I love Space Mountain, and it turned me on to roller coasters.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and that was in 1979.
Now, was that the first time you went to Disney World, or had you been
that was
and you didn't ride?
4th time I had been to Disney.
Is that right? 4th time. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So my turn.
Yeah, your turn.
Are we sharing? Okay. Yeah. So I went. It would have been 83, I think it is. Yeah,
okay.
summer of 83. I went in. I did not like roller coasters when I was younger either. I was a big chicken. I don't know if it was the first roller coaster I went in. Might have been. But my stepbrothers at the time, who'd been to Disney World before, like, nah, you got to go on this thing. And I'm like, space. I like space. But what I found interesting about what you said about the restraints was that even though I liked it and we rode it over and over and over, basically left the automatic walkway and then went back around to the front and then rode again, like kids do. Mm-hmm. 2 things really stuck out at me that kind of freaked me out about the ride. One is that I felt that I was going to fly out. I didn't feel like particularly secure in there. So it's interesting you say that, like, they whatever the restraints were, with any belt at all, I definitely remember feeling that. And the other was the psychology of going through the dark. And there's one part you kind of go down and like around, and there's bars above you. Mm-hmm. And I'm not very tall, but it just seemed like that they freaked me out that they were going to cut my head off at any point. So those are my 2 kind of scary memories about it. But overall, love obviously for what I'm into, I love the theming and the dark aspect of it. But
yeah, I
remember those 2 things.
Well, and that was part of it too. A big part of it too, right? Was the space and the future and science and everything else. And
what about science?
Oh my God, it was just the greatest the greatest thing.
And the sounds, right? Just because
sounds,
being in the dark with those sounds really amplified kind of the feeling from the music and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, the whole experience was just something I remember from. It's one of the memories I have of being young, and it's one that I still remember. We had gone, a few years in a row before that. And I remember bits and pieces, but this I remember vividly. So anyway, so that's why
I have to ask you. You
impact.
probably don't have it in your notes, but maybe remember. Do you remember getting anything merchandise wise to like you loved it so much? Like you got a shirt, a hat, a cup, a keychain, any sort of tchotchke out of that from
I don't know that they.
They must have had stuff.
I guess they did, but I certainly didn't get it. The only thing this isn't Space Mountain related, but the only souvenir I would get we didn't have a lot of money.
Invisible dog leash?
No, I didn't. That was a waste of money. Well, why would you get that? Do you remember the little yellow flashlights that they had? They were a rectangle, but they were kind of shaped. They were tapered. No. And it had Walt Disney World on the side, and it had a little keychain, like one of those little, metal, with the bumps and the little clasp.
Yeah, right. And you could give it to your parents because you're like, oh, it's functional. It's a flashlight.
And a pencil case.
My wife has a pencil case at the same time. Yeah, so
those were the two things that I got. Like we didn't have a lot of money to spend on frivolous things like
a
souvenirs.
Disney World trip.
So no, I didn't have any Space Mountain related.
Okay, I'm just curious. Okay.
Oh, I did get. One more thing. I did get one of the little cap
Take your time.
guns from.
We got the studio the rest of the night.
Pirates of the Caribbean. Yes, that thing.
So I just sent him a picture of the Google search for yellow vintage Walt Disney World flashlight.
Yes, I'll have to post that.
All right.
I did get a Pirates of the Caribbean cap gun.
Okay.
With the little pistol one.
Yeah, that'll get you killed today.
Got that too.
Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, all right. Okay, so leaving the ride. You go through the ride. You're leaving. And you exited the Space Mountain. So Space Mountain was built outside of the berm. So what that means is the Walt Disney World Railroad actually separates the actual building of Space Mountain from the entrance in Tomorrowland. So you actually have to go under a tunnel or in a tunnel under the railroad tracks. And so you have to go down and then back up. When you're entering and leaving. And so on the way out, they had the Goodyear speed ramp, and you would get on that, and you would basically stand there, and watch, go through the Home of Future Living. And so on the way down, that's when you went through the house. And so just really quickly, did you ever see if you went in 83, I'm sure you saw it, but you may not remember it. But it's something I remember because it was very futuristic to me and to everybody because of what they had. And so I just want to go through some of the futuristic things that they had in this
I wish you would because I think what happened from everything that I recall was again, I went with my stepbrothers and they had been before. So there was no, they just wanted to ride the ride over and over. There was no sort of slowing down to appreciate the the theming about it. So what's the rundown? What did I miss?
Okay. So you started outside on the patio with the father. Obviously there's a family, right, that lives in this Home of Future Living. And so the dad's outside on a lounge chair looking at a briefcase-sized TV screen, and he's on a business video call. So it's he's doing a video call that on something that basically looks like a big, thick laptop.
Okay.
So that's the first thing you saw. Then you go into, so all of the rooms were a series of white hexagonal modules. So they were
I'm sorry. Did you just say hexagonal? I'm gonna have to call you on that one.
Why? What's the correct
I'm pretty sure it's hexagonal.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
That.
All right.
It's that. And so they were stacked. One on the bottom, one on top. So it was a pattern that so you could see what was going on. They didn't because they were dealing with a limited amount of space.
Sure.
And it was all beautiful. Yellow and white and orange and brown, all those wonderful 70s colors. It was the design. So you go into the house and the first thing you go into is the nursery. Okay. Mm-hmm. So there's a kid, a baby, in a playpen.
I'm sorry. Can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
For those that may not remember or were too young for this. So when you say you go through, these were like they're kind of to the side of you, kind of like as you're going through the belt, right?
Yeah. So where the outer
they're
space
like dioramas almost, right?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. That's where they were. So they were all on your right hand side.
Yeah. Okay.
There was just the plain wall on your left hand side, just like it is today.
Got it. Okay.
And the idea is you're on the speed ramp and everybody's going the same speed and they're just standing there and you're seeing these scenes as you go through. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you go into the nursery, there's a baby in the playpen and there's literally a toy clown.
Oh dear.
That is holding a camera pointed at the baby. Okay, so the camera's not in the clown. It's not like a babysitter
so it's Chucky, is what you're saying.
Monitor thing.
Yeah.
It's actually a clown holding a camera, an RCA camera, at the kid.
Okay.
And so that signal is on like the other screens in the house that you'll see, as you go through. Mm-hmm. So the next room is the family room. The grandmother is taking a TV pottery lesson that's two-way. So she sees the instructor.
Yeah.
She has her pottery, bowl or whatever. And she's like, "Oh, this isn't right. Why isn't this right?" And he's answering her. So then, what's that?
I just said I remember that part. Yep.
So next is the rec room. There's a teenage boy who is snow skiing on a Selectavision simulator, while his younger brother is assembling a model rocket using instructions that are televised. Okay. Then you pass the front door, and a boy is there outside. He's holding a frog, and he's like covered in mud. But there's a camera, and he's talking to the mother, who we'll see in the next scene.
It's almost like RCA made cameras, like video cameras. They kept showing them so much.
Yeah,
it's a joke.
So then you go to the kitchen. The mother's there. They're looking at a large TV wall unit, but they're actually looking at an online catalog system. So like not quite the home shopping network, because it was before that, but kind of like an Amazon, and on the screen it's saying, hey, push 1 to order this plate, push 2 to order this plate. And she's talking to the boy. You can see in the inset, the boy outside at the front door. Then you go to the teenage daughter's bedroom. She's watching a Selectavision video disc movie on a large screen. And then the last thing was the entertainment center, where a young girl and a boy watched a football game on a wall-side screen. So this was the biggest screen that they showed, and it was showing that you could record, whatever you're watching. So that was all the technology that they had. So then
I think you missed one. Did you miss the skier? Did you say that?
Yeah, I said that.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I must have been distracted.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then you go out, under the railroad tracks, and it was just walls. And there was nothing there. But then when you start to go back up, that's where the magical TVs were that you could see yourself.
I remember those. They like kind of like staggered as you went up the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. Those I remember. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that whole thing was for a 8, 9, 10-year-old boy was completely fascinating.
And so today, well, I'll let you go.
Well, yeah. So that was there from 75 through 85.
Okay.
And
So
then,
yeah, so I would have seen the very tail end of that
Yeah.
by 83, which probably would have felt a little old by that point, I would imagine. So
yeah.
okay,
So in 85, they changed it to Ryca 1, RYCA 1.
okay,
And essentially, it's really what is there today. It's pretty much the same since 85. It changed to, showing what life might be like in a space colony on other planets.
Right.
And so those are the sets that they've had since then. They've updated them a little bit and changed them a little bit, but essentially it's pretty much the same since 1985 to what they have today.
It seems like they could have updated a little bit.
Yeah, I know. Because it's
but-
never really wowed me, but,
yeah,
Very
cool. So it almost has a Horizons-esque kind of feel to it from the early side, right?
It
The
does.
first version, yeah.
Yeah.
I was a little distracted because I was trying to visualize as you're talking about this, so I found some videos on YouTube.
Cool.
To kind
Oh, I'm gonna
of
have to look
see.
at that.
Yeah. Martin, remember Martin? And
Oh,
his tributes?
Martin, yeah.
He's got some.
He has
got
that?
some-
Really?
Well, he's got a whole Space Mountain thing.
Nice.
So I think he's got some of that stuff on there.
Okay.
But there's one video I found. It's just a couple minutes long that actually showed the scenes you were talking about with the Home of the Future.
Okay. I'll have to put those in the show notes.
Yeah, cool.
So yeah, RCA sponsored it originally, obviously, from 75 till 93. Then FedEx took over from 94 to 2004, and then since 2005, it's been sponsorless.
Is that right? That long? I didn't realize
I
that.
know, right? 14 years it's been sponsorless.
It's funny the things that stick in your head because there's one time we were actually I guess we were on the Wedway, but we were stuck inside Space Mountain one part where they talk about the FedEx spiel, and that still sticks in our head today. However many years later that is. So
Yeah.
I guess that sponsorship pays off.
Well, that's the one thing that that FedEx did was they put up TVs in the waiting area. This was before FastPass, right? So they actually used those back and forth waiting area inside Space Mountain, and you could watch the TV, and they would have it was SMTV, Space Mountain TV, and they would have commercials, they would have news, and it was all pretty funny. But they took those out when they stopped sponsoring it. Do you remember those?
Vaguely.
Really?
I think. Yeah.
I mean, I remember the music from it. I remember.
Well,
all
you
that.
remember many.
Well, we
more
watched
things
it.
than I do.
We wrote it a lot, though.
Yeah. What was I going to ask you? So I mentioned Wedway. So
Yeah.
This is kind of unique in that the Wedway goes through the attraction. So
It does.
I don't think it's ever occurred to me before. The Wedway predates this ride, though, right? Or no? I guess
they
it all
all
kind of
both
came together,
around the
didn't it?
same time. Yeah.
Okay, all right. For some reason, I was thinking it came later. All right, so it's kind of built into that. I guess Disneyland doesn't have anything like that going through it, right?
That's correct. They don't.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, and I was joking earlier. Obviously, I know there's variations of the different ones, so it's pretty iconic. So it hasn't changed much, really, especially from the ride aspect of it, right?
No, the ride's pretty much exactly the same.
Well, now let me ask you this,
Yeah.
and see if you have this in your data. So
Okay.
one thing I hear of people on the interwebs often talk about and complain about is I've heard people say, they used to have it much darker in there than they do these days. Is that a for real thing, or is that just people's
No, actually,
memories, or what is that?
It's a faulty memory because it's the actual opposite. Because because in 2009, during the rehab, it was down for almost a year while
That must have killed you.
they fixed the track, and I had actually moved here, so it didn't really affect me.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But
Well, it worked out for you then.
so anyway, but during that time, that's the one change that they made was before, when you rode the Wedway, you could actually see into the line area, and you could see the cars going by and everything else.
But you can't now? Like you look like you can. Don't you see that now?
No, they put they walled it off,
Yeah.
and they covered the line area to make it darker.
Yeah, because
light-
I thought people were throwing stuff down there.
No, because light was leaking in from the Wedway, from the exit.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's actually darker now than it ever has been.
Well, then I'll just tell all those complainers to shut up.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
So what would you say this is like, I mean, is this your favorite attraction? Like if they said we're going to blow up all the others but keep one.
Yeah, I mean, it would be up there. Yeah, it'd probably be between this and Haunted Mansion.
Okay.
And Pirates are close.
Yeah, you see,
right up there
just,
too. But
you're just picking all the rights.
Space Mountain and Haunted Mansion are the two.
Okay.
It'd be very close.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So what's the future Space Mountain look like at Disney World? What's coming? Is Tron just going to supersede it now and just like everybody's going to be like, oh yeah, there's that ancient Space Mountain?
I mean, that's a great question. I don't know. I hope that doesn't happen. I don't know. I don't know what they could do to it. You know, I was thinking about that as I was putting this together. I was thinking about, you know, the Tron coaster. It's going to be right next door. Mm-hmm. Like, how do you not?
Yeah, the comparisons
overshadow?
They're going to get made, right? So
yeah,
you know, I don't know, but it is it's a nice bit of vintage.
Yeah,
I'm kind of, like I said, I was watching the videos. We're talking. It's interesting that like I stopped in this one seat. A kid is watching a football game, right? I think you said that, and like the TV is like wall size. Like we're just now getting to the point where TVs are the size this can actually be, because it looks like it's probably a 70 or 80 inch television,
right?
Based on what we see today, and it looks like it's widescreen too, which is weird because back then that wasn't even. I mean, everything was square format like the olden times. So. Sure. And there were no flat screens, right? So this was this was in a CRT based world, tubes and everything. So
yeah,
it's interesting. So this would have been, 40 years it's taken us to finally achieve this future.
Yeah. In parts of it, like
some came sooner, some came later. Yeah.
We have YouTube now, right? That we learn how to do things. And
is that what YouTube's for?
Well,
I just watch cat videos. That's what I watch.
Doing video calls, like
yeah, right.
So
ahead of its time.
Yeah, and that's why, even though it, right now, today we look back and everything looks clunky and huge, but the reality is we're just getting to some of that, and it is, so yeah, it was ahead of its time.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Glenn. I learned a lot.
Good.
Now I want to go ride Space Mountain.
Look at that, and you can.
Yeah, I don't like sitting that close to strangers. It freaks me out.
Oh, goodness.
Especially when I scream when it goes down the hills and stuff.
It just sounds like a little girl.
Right. From a 28-year-old man. So have you passed on the love of this ride to your progeny? Are they
I'm trying.
You're trying. I'm beating it into them.
My daughter likes it, but she likes the more adventurous roller coasters better.
Yeah, it is pretty tame by today's standards.
Yes, it is.
Sure, right?
However, my son is still he's afraid of it.
Yeah, mine won't. He won't. I don't think he's big enough yet. Anyway, I'm not sure. But even just going through it on the way to he's like, I'm not going on this ride, because he hears this, and think about it from their perspective. You go through and it's in the dark, and you hear everybody like screaming. He's like, why would I do that? People, I'm like, no, they're screaming because it's fun.
Yeah.
He's like, that's not what it sounds like.
Yeah, my son does it, but as we go through the line, he's like very timid, and he's like, oh, I don't really want to do this. I was like, shut up, kid, get on.
It's funny how much the dark really plays with your mind with that, because I've been I imagine you have too. I've been on Wedway a couple of times when the lights have been on, because they have to, I don't know, find somebody's hat or something. Yeah. And when you see it, like the whole thing, you're like, that's it.
Yeah.
Like it's not all that impressive as a roller coaster when you actually see it in a light.
It's not, and it's really just like a Wild Mouse type ride.
Yeah.
If you know what that is. I mean, that's essentially all it is. It's just a bunch of switchbacks and a gentle decline. There's one bigger drop, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, but I'm here to tell you, when you're 12 and you feel like you're going to fly out of it at any moment and get your head chopped off, it was pretty terrifying.
Absolutely.
All right. On that note, is that a good place to stop?
Yeah, getting your head chopped off is a perfect place to stop.
Awesome. Well, I like these little trips through the deep dive to the attraction. So thanks, Glenn.
You're welcome.
All right. See ya.
Bye. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Starport 75. Follow Chris on Twitter and Instagram at CBGray, and Glenn on Twitter and Instagram at DizWiz.
Follow the show on Twitter and Facebook at Starport75 and Instagram at TheStarport75. For all things related to the show, including show notes and links to connect with us, visit us at Starport75.com. This episode is sponsored by ParkLeap. Do you hate waiting in lines for your favorite rides at Disney World, Universal, and Disneyland? Of course you do. Everyone does. ParkLeap tracks current wait times for attractions in real time, analyzes them, and gives you immediate guidance on what to ride now and what to skip for a shorter wait later on. ParkLeap saves you time so you can do more, see more, and ride more. Many theme parks provide their own apps, which is great, but they only report the times. You only get information, you don't get guidance. Is that 40-minute wait good or bad? ParkLeap can tell you. ParkLeap also includes an interface that is clean, quick, and easy to use. Many vacationers travel to multiple theme parks. Now one app does it all. Whether you're a local resident and annual pass holder, or travel great lengths once a year or every few years, you want to make the most of your time and money. This is the app to get to help you do that. Get ParkLeap in the Apple App Store. And thank you to ParkLeap for sponsoring Starport 75.